Buenos dias and good morning to everybody out there in the lands of the internet. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today on today's episode of the Wise Agent Society's National Real Estate News. Today we have my good friend and colleague out of Las Vegas, Michael Vestuto. Joining us live, as you can see in the background, he has sold most of the houses in Las Vegas, and really happy to have him here. We've been friends a long time, and we're going to catch up on a little bit about how we know each other and all that stuff. And we're going to talk about data in Las Vegas. Michael, thanks for coming today. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for having me. How are things where you're at?
Really good. Actually, well, two things. So today it's a rainy fall day in eastern Iowa. I almost said central Iowa. I'm not in central Iowa anymore. But we're loving it. You know, it's like that typical fall time. The leaves are changing, and it's cool. It's nice. How about you?
Good. It's nice here. Where we're into the 70s, so it's a nice, comfortable weather, bright and sunny. So,
Perfect. Las Vegas.
It is.
Yeah. What else was I say? And then secondly, you asked how it's doing, and I don't remember when. Well, the last time we talked person to person, I hadn't had my surgery yet, but I just had septum surgery, and so recovering from that. I mean, it was a tough recovery, but now I'm feeling fantastic.
That's a tough surgery.
Dude, I had no idea. I kind of went into it blind, and then I was just like, wow.
Did you have to wear the gauze underneath the nose and everything? And
I did for a day, but I didn't really like it, so I just didn't do it. I just let stuff kind of get everywhere. It was gross.
I bet.
No, I had tissues, I was just manually doing it. But they put these big tubes in your nose, and that's the part that's super uncomfortable. So happy to have those out. Now I can breathe better. Everything's good.
There you go. Good.
Yes, sir. So let's talk about a little bit. So Michael and I go way back to Las Vegas, and there's a funny story in there too, because we didn't know what years before we even knew each other. He did a short stint in my hometown, Marshalltown, Iowa, working there, and it's funny because it wasn't Michael's most fondest memories of his life.
No, it wasn't.
Cracks me up every time to think about it. But yeah, so funny. He lived in my hometown. What was it, for a year?
Yeah, for a year. I worked for Menards, a home improvement store. They sent me over there to be assistant store manager. And you're the only one that I've ever met that is in my life that has been from Marshalltown. Nobody even knows the town. I mean, it's small.
Yeah.
For me, I moved from Minneapolis at that time to Marshalltown, so it was a completely, drastic change, and it was tough getting used to.
Yeah, it's a funky town. I mean, I'm happy to have grown up there and lived there and been born there. But it's smaller. It's like I don't know. It's got its own thing going on. So
yeah,
funny. And there are a couple of good things like that. People really enjoy, like Maid-Rites and Zeno's Pizza and stuff like that. But if you're not from there and you don't have the history and the culture, you didn't grow up there, then I could see how it's hard to kind of find value there. But anyway, funny that you were there, and we didn't know each other. But I don't know if I lived there at that time either. But that's just a funny little segue story. But we did meet in Las Vegas as realtors. I'm trying to remember when we first met. Do you remember when we first met?
I don't recall. I think it was like a gathering with like Czar and Craig Tan and a bunch of people, and I think that's where we initially met.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we had some conversations about the gym more than we did about real estate.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. We both like going to the gym and working out. Speaking of which, I popped my collarbone out of the socket 4 times 2 days ago doing lat pull downs. I didn't even know what happened at first. And I was like, oh man, that was weird. And I kept going. And I was like, after I did it, like the next day, I was like, man, I shouldn't have kept going.
Yeah,
So I went to the doctor and he like messed with it. And so I gotta be careful. But man, that was weird.
I didn't know it just pops in and out of place like that.
I didn't know it could do that. Like right here too, like where it connects to your sternum.
Ouch.
Oh man. Yeah, it was painful. It's more painful now after it happened than when it did happen. We're getting old, man.
I hear you.
We gotta be
Can't be
careful.
lifting heavy anymore.
Dude, I was trying to go a little heavy. I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling good. I've been taking it easy for like a year and a half. So I've been trying to step it up. I feel like my tendons and everything are strong. Well, turns out they're not, or at
Yeah,
least
that's
not
that's
that
your
much.
mind playing tricks on us.
I know. So my buddies that I work out with, they're like, well, let's go light for a week or two. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's cool. So we've been talking about fitness um, and the gym and all that stuff for a long time. And you've done a lot of cool things in a more kind of a elevated format than I have. You were in a show, even a competition.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, in 2017, I never competed before.
Yeah.
But my daughter wanted to compete for the first time, and she was 20 and she was nervous. We did a lot of working out together, and she's like, will you compete with me? And so I committed to it, and I knew it was good that I had to do it with her because it made me stay focused, because I knew that if I didn't stay focused, it wasn't going to keep her on track.
Yep.
So I mean, but it's a process to compete. I mean, working out is easy. It's the diet and sticking to, there's a science to it.
Yeah.
And it was one of the toughest things, most rewarding things, but it's also plays a psychological game with you. I mean, I got down to 3% body fat.
Wow.
And yeah, and it's hard to maintain that. And after you compete, you try to maintain that percentage, because if you go up slightly, like I was at 10% body fat and I thought I was like obese,
like fat.
Yeah. So you got to have you got to get your mindset right and know that you're still in good shape, but keeping at that competition level is tough. But I'm glad I got to do it. Hearing all these stories about people competing and you think it's easy. Just going through the process, I have a new level of appreciation for them.
It was super cool to watch you go through it. I mean, I watched it for you and your daughter, and it was really cool. And it was cool that you did that with her. What a cool bonding experience. I know that you're a great dad because I know you and I watch what you do, and so you're really good with your daughters, and that's cool that you did that with her. I don't know if I could ever get that committed to doing a show, but I did 75 hard. That was pretty cool, but that wasn't as intense as what you did. So
I've always done a lot of different things with them. I've never really told my daughters no. So they had my daughter was in cheerleading for a long time. So when she was a little bit younger, they had a parents and kids cheer performance, and they were doing it in front of a state level thing. And I agreed to do that with her, and I had to go to practice every day for 4 weeks. Yeah. So it was pretty intense learning that choreography and doing that with her.
Well, what a guy.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love that about you. And I think that both of these two things that we just talked about really lend a hand and play a factor into why you're such a consistent and well-known and sought-after real estate agent in Las Vegas. So two things: you have the discipline that you learned for working out and all that. I know you have discipline. I know you talk about it and you champion discipline, which is good for your mind and body and all that, for everybody.
Yeah.
You're setting a good example for that. And that translates into the real estate world because you have to be disciplined with your business activities and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, having conversations and building relationships. And I think that's the second part that we touched on there, is that you have, these loving relationships with your daughters, but I know that you also have loving relationships to an extent with your clients and the people that you're around. I know you're passionate about it because I see, how you present on social media and what you're doing, and then just of course knowing you and talking to you. That's how you are. So maybe tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate and
Okay.
where you started and what company you're at now or whatever, and what you
Sure.
focus on as far as real estate goes.
Well, real estate really runs through my family. My grandfather and my father were both in real estate. My grandfather was more into development and
Okay.
et cetera in Chicago.
Okay.
Um, and I moved to Las Vegas in the 80s. My whole family moved here from Chicago in the
Okay.
80s, and for my dad to pursue real estate.
Oh,
And he started in real estate. My parents unfortunately got divorced. I moved back to Chicago, and then he kind of built his own empire in real estate here. He
okay.
was with Remax, and he ended up having like the #1 team internationally, like 5 years in a row. And he always tried to get me to move to Las Vegas to be in real estate, and was telling me about the success that all his agents were having. And, he wanted to be able to pass something down. But I could never like convince my family to want to come to Las Vegas just because of the stigma that Las Vegas had, that it wasn't really a family town. So it wasn't until I ended up losing my job as a store manager that, I got tired of the retail world. I got tired of, other people like controlling the outcome of your career.
Hmm.
So, I said, I got to at least try it. If it doesn't work out in real estate, it could always go back to something else.
Yeah.
So in 2005, moved to Las Vegas to start real estate. And back then, there was such an influx of agents that were getting into real estate, kind of like we had during the pandemic,
Yep.
that the process to get your license took so long because of the background checks.
Yep.
So it took me like 6 months before my real estate license even got approved.
Oh, wow.
And so I was just watching everybody like make money. And all I was doing is basically driving around, surveying, and getting to know all the developers, getting to know the lay of the land, which
What
was
year was
helpful.
this? What year is this again?
2005.
2005. Okay.
So my license came in November of 2005. And then, 2006 was really like when it started to like plateau. And then 2007, it was like a flip of a switch, and it just like ceased altogether.
Yeah. I
So
got there about 2009, I think. 2008 or 2009. So for some reason, I thought you were there way longer than me. I mean, three or 4 years is still longer, but yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So everything stopped.
Yeah, the market, I mean, it was like a flip of a switch, like nothing was happening. And then all of a sudden, everyone was in these difficult loans that, they couldn't pay, that were coming due with the, interest only, or the neg arm loans. And it just became bad. So it was a good thing for me, because back then, in the 2000 to 2006, like people were just writing offers on the hood of their car, like, because there was a dozen people waiting to get into the house.
Yep.
So a lot of people were order takers, where it really forced me to, dig deep, work with clients, and then helping people with short sales. That
Yep.
really like was probably one of the most rewarding parts of real estate for me, is
Oh,
when I truly felt like I was doing something to help them. Because you have someone that's in a situation where they're upside down in their home, they don't know how they're going to get out of that situation, and then be able to short sell their property and let them know that there's no debt that they're going to be carrying forward, that they have a cancellation of that debt. I mean, a lot of those people were just in tears. They were happy. They were like, thank you for getting me out of this. It
yep.
really felt very rewarding that you could help people in that situation.
That's what I love about you, because this is the passion I'm talking about, and this is what I see the theme of when you're doing the work you do. You're really passionate about actually helping people and making a difference, and providing value for what you get paid for.
I try to. I mean, I don't really consider myself a salesman. I don't. I've received rewards. That's why I have the houses behind me. I put my clients' houses behind me. I don't put my awards behind me.
Yeah.
A lot of the awards, you don't know if people earned them, if they bought them, if they.
Hmm.
And that doesn't really like motivate me to
Yep.
receive awards or be in the top, whatever. It's really helping people and, working with people that you can relate to, that appreciate you and you appreciate working with them and having that solid relationship. I've
Yep.
turned down a lot of business just because I either feel like I'm not the right fit for that person or that person's not a right fit for me.
Yep.
And I don't want to create bad blood just to make a buck.
Right. Yeah.
Because if you do one thing wrong, that person will tell 10 people.
Yep.
The unfortunate side is that if you do one thing right, like, they're not spreading the news for positivity as much as they do for
Right.
negativity.
Yep.
So I have to assess each client and situation on if it's going to be beneficial for both of us to work together.
That's very smart, and that is a sign of a seasoned, well-rounded agent. That you do that you go through it, you talk to them, because I think the most successful realtors are more advisors than they are salespeople. I mean, of course, they're salespeople too. That's what we're doing. But I think, like you said, it's meeting with the client, going over their situation, and determining the best path to move forward. And that might not always be working together.
Correct.
And I think that some agents don't work it that way, but the ones that do, I think, have more, well, probably a better quality of life, for one thing, because it's stressful working with people that isn't a good match.
Yeah.
But also, you're just doing the best thing for the client. So that's cool.
I tried to. In 2023, to be honest, has probably been one of the worst years in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main reasons is because I have talked myself out of a lot of business.
Uh-huh.
So, like, if I go on a listing appointment and someone says that they're looking to sell their home,
Mhm.
and I'm like, okay, what's your next move? What are you looking to buy? And if they're downsizing or upsizing, I want to go over the whole scenario. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to sell your house. This is the equity you have. But if we buy, this is what you're looking at for buying power, and this is what you're looking at for a payment.
Mhm.
Now, do you feel comfortable with, even though you're downsizing, your payment is going to increase maybe double right now in this market?
With
And
the
a lot
current
of
market
times,
interest rate.
and after you communicate that to people, they're like, wow, it really doesn't make sense for us to move knowing that we're going to pay more, which I'm talking myself out of business, but I'm trying to
Yeah.
put the person in the best scenario possible.
Yep.
You don't want them to end up homeless because you sold their house. So you did a great
Mhm.
job there. But now when you go to find something for them, they're like, I can't afford that.
Yeah. Nothing's working in their price range there.
Yeah.
So that's really good and really smart. And I'll spin that a little bit. Is maybe you're not talking yourself out of business. You're talking maybe out of yourself out of business right now, but by being that professional, caring advisor, when the time is right for them, they're definitely going to come to you, because nobody else is telling them, hey, this is what's probably in your best interest, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller. And so they probably really appreciate that, and you'll get more business from that later. And they'll also tell other people, like, you should talk to Michael Vestuto because he's a straight shooter, you know?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I keep in touch with the people. I haven't seen anyone that's, put their home on the market even after I've talked to them.
Right.
I just made a video yesterday. It'll go out next week, but this whole marry the house, date the rate,
Mm-hmm.
it annoys the crap out of me. Like, I mean, for the longest time as agents, we tell people that payment is the most important thing.
Yep.
And now we're telling people, well, even if you're extending yourself, at least you're getting the house and you can always refinance down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nobody knows what's happening with interest rates. I mean,
Right.
every economist has been wrong for 2023. Nobody can explain why the yield spread between what the 10-year bond and the interest rates are, why it's double when it usually is. Nobody knows, not even major economists. So me as a real estate agent, I don't know what's going to happen with interest rates.
Right. Yeah.
And my job is to put people in the best position today based on their budget,
Yep.
not on the anticipation of what tomorrow may hold.
Yeah. I like how you said that you don't want to get them overextended. So what I've been saying is, like, listen, if you're comfortable with the payment at the rate it is today, and so, I mean, there's a lot of factors, right, per client.
Yeah.
So there is there are some good reasons for somebody to buy right now. It's better than renting,
Oh, absolutely.
only if you can afford it, and if all those financial factors you're talking about make sense. And if it doesn't, like you said, don't get over leveraged, because we
Yeah.
don't know how long or what this stuff's going to be, and then they could just be squished in the end, or house poor, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to have a high end car, but if the payment's double of what it's going to be that I can afford, I'm not going to buy that car.
Yep.
I have to be within my means. So it's the same thing with
Smart.
purchasing a home. We're advisors. We need to put our clients in the best position today
Yep.
based on what they can afford, what their budget is. And
Yep.
it's always better to buy than it is to rent. So
Yep. If it's makes sense financially, like you said.
yeah.
So wait, let's go back just a little bit. So you started at Remax. I want to go back to your history, and then and did you got your license in finally, and
Uh-huh.
and you started where, and how did your first couple years look, and then how did you get to where you are now? And
So when I started with Remax in 2005, it was basically just working with buyers, and it was mainly my father had his own magazines in town, and that were distributed all over, and it looked like it was called Las Vegas Homes and then Las Vegas Home Finders,
okay,
and so when people would pick up the magazine, they would flip through the page thinking that they're reaching different like agents or offices, but they were all his. So no
yeah,
matter what page you called on, you were still reaching the same office.
right,
And we were doing a lot of the new home inventory back then.
okay.
Um,
Which
so that's
office was
really,
this? Which Remax office?
it was Remax Home Store.
Home store. I can't even remember all the
Yeah.
Remaxes that I have
It was
known.
off of Rainbow and like Sahara kind of
Okay,
over in that area, but
okay,
had a lot of big top producers there. Noah Herrera, Jason Abrams,
oh wow,
David Diltz, Corey Guy. There was a lot of
okay,
successful agents there.
sure,
And I know like 1 month, or actually it was over a weekend, we used to write our name on the dry erase board. And one time an agent had a sheet of paper and he put the whole sheet of paper under his name. And his name's Leo Mendoza. I think he's with Keller Williams now, but he
okay.
sold 25 units at Trump Towers in like one weekend.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow, how the heck
It
did you do
was,
that?
just investors and people he met.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So a lot of the agents were killing it.
Yeah.
But then as the market changed, I ended up being lucky enough to establish relationships with some of the banks for REOs.
Okay.
So that ended up being where I did a bulk of my business from, I would say 2008 to like 2012, 13,
Okay.
was REOs. I ended up having Bank of America, Fannie Mae, and a couple other smaller banks,
Okay.
and just, doing hundreds of transactions of bank owned properties.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was a completely different time. Everyone talks about today that, the market's going to crash or we're going to see REOs. We'll never see REOs like we did back in 2008
Right.
and beyond. And the reason it was like that is because the banks didn't even know what to do with the properties back then.
Yeah. They had too many. They were plugged up with trying to figure out how to process all that bad debt.
Yeah. And now the systems have changed. They work with hedge funds. They have government assistance to help them with their balance sheets now that we'll never see it. I mean, right
There's
now
better
they're smart
lending,
about it.
better
Yeah.
lending restrictions. They don't just give them willy nilly. They're not signature loans and all of that now. So
Yeah.
much better there. So Remax, and then you did your REO stuff. And what after the REO stuff?
So then my father decided that he was going to get out of the business and he moved to Wisconsin. And we ended up merging with another Remax. It was Remax Benchmark.
Okay.
One of the larger Remaxes that was right off of the 215 in town center. They had the big billboard and like red building.
Okay.
We merged with them and then just handle most of our business there. And then I left Remax, I want to say like 4 years ago.
Okay.
and went over to Platinum Real Estate Professionals.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like Remax has a big name, but a lot of times these corporations have a slow process of adapting
Mm-hmm.
to technology, and their systems become kind of archaic, and they just can't adapt quick enough.
Yep.
So I
You
just,
wanted something a little more local, a little more nimble.
yeah. So that's why I made the move from Remax and moved over to Platinum, where I have a lot more flexibility
I like
um,
it.
with technology and stuff like that.
So, where do you focus on as far as your real estate dealings in Las Vegas? Do you focus on one area? Do you focus on one kind of client, or do you work all over the valley and with all kinds of clients? And how does that look?
I really work all over the valley. I don't, pigeonhole myself into one particular client or, um, right now the dynamic is everyone seems to become a luxury agent.
Mm-hmm.
And,
That's because everything
even,
costs that much money.
yeah,
Everything costs as much as a luxury house, even for regular ones.
well, that, and I think this reality TV show thing, like
Yeah,
Selling Sunset and all this, is like
yeah,
skewed the agents' minds. I mean, you have a lot of people that are luxury agents that really don't know much of what they're doing with real estate. I mean, you got somebody that's fresh out of school that's handling, a multi-million dollar property.
yep.
So I don't really, you know, pigeonhole myself into one particular client. I mean, yesterday I had a listing appointment for um, a 1,500 square foot house in North Las Vegas that's 300,000.
Hmm.
And today I have a listing appointment for a 20,000 square foot house in Spanish Trails that's,
Wow.
multi-million dollar home. So
Yep.
it's really keeping in touch with your clients, your database, and being able to inform anyone of what's going on in all facets of real estate.
Yep. And that's how I do it too, and how I've always done it. So, I mean, I've sold, $4+ million houses, and then I've sold, well, depending on where we're talking. If we're talking Vegas, then I've sold, $45,000 condos in places that were not very safe for me to be. You know what I mean? I've sold
Yeah,
a
exactly.
couple with like they were actually drug dens, like for real people doing drugs while I was touring it, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, of course, that's not usual. But the same thing though. I'm here to help everybody, and then also have the ability to market and talk about the numbers and how everything can work for a luxury client as well.
Yeah. In Las Vegas, a lot of people think it's, it is a big city,
Yeah.
but it's also a small town. Like a lot of people know each other. It's easier to
Yep.
get from one side to the other. You can know all the areas of Vegas pretty easily.
Yep.
So even though we have, 2.5, 3 million people in the city,
Yep.
it's still pretty small.
It is. It's weirdly small. How like everywhere you go, you run into people uh,
Yeah.
and it is fairly easy to learn all the areas and the neighborhoods, and then like everything's master plan communities. So it's as far as real estate goes, it's easy to learn floor plans and builders and that so that makes it easier to give values and CMAs for properties. So I love selling real estate in Las Vegas. It's fun
Yeah.
and and cool. And then like you said, you get to run into a lot of people.
I think it's very easy to sell homes in real estate because in Las Vegas, because our homes are all the same,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yep.
Like if you live in like probably in Iowa, like every floor plan is different. So
Well,
it
it
would be
depends. San Diego is a better example of that. San
okay.
Diego has totally different floor plans in different areas, and
So that would be hard as a buyer to be able
mhm.
to decide on a home you want. And then as an agent, you almost have to preview every property you show to make sure, does this meet the criteria they're looking for? Where in Vegas, if somebody likes this floor plan, I can search that floor plan all over the city and find it pretty
Yeah.
easy.
Yep. Yeah, that's
Oh,
exactly right. So two things there. When I was selling a lot of real estate in Las Vegas, and I love it, and I still love it, and I still love the architecture there. I love the way the single story houses there with a big footprint and tall ceilings and open spaces. I love that.
yeah.
But it also was a little monotonous. You know what I mean? Just selling the same kind of houses all the time. it's still fun. I still enjoyed it, and there still are differences. And then you can get to the older areas that have some cool, different stuff too. But when I got to San Diego, it was the other way around. Everything's different, and everything's
Yeah.
it's harder to assign value. You have to look at a lot of different factors and check different things to assign value, basically. So pros and cons to all of it, but all still rewarding and fun.
I
So
saw
now, go ahead.
I saw last week that San Diego was just rated the most expensive city in the country.
Number one, like least affordable city to live in the
Wow.
country. And it's true. I mean, like, the average, I mean, the average house there, the last I saw the numbers was, if it was $1 million, I think it was $1 million was the average. The median was maybe a little lower.
Okay.
But I mean, $1 million for, I'm talking like a 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house on a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot lot, and that's probably a raised foundation, not even on a slab or anything.
What's the FHA limit there?
I was just looking at that. I think it's $1 million.
That's a FHA limit?
Yeah, like 1 point something. And it's going to go to 1.12. Where did I see that?
Dang, that's all right.
Isn't that crazy for
It is.
for high balance, right? High balance loan limit.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's like 1.1 million for 3.5% down.
Yeah.
Is that crazy?
Dang. Well, I guess
so
just need to get your football team back.
Yeah. That was a bum deal, but people voted it out. They didn't want it, man. You guys got one. San Diego lost one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is crazy. And so that's the other thing too, is that I've even looked at, so this is a good segue into talking about some data now in Las Vegas. Because when I was just there not long ago, I always look at real estate, and I started looking at houses that I would want to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't looked that closely at houses there, and they're much more expensive than they were before. And like, for example, like to find a 4,000 plus square foot house on, let's say, maybe a half acre, which is big, so maybe that wasn't a good example either. But let's just say, and single story, gosh, I mean, I was having a hard time finding any under $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was just like, wow, like back in the day, I mean, you could find those all day for $350,000, $400,000,
Good.
Yeah. So that was interesting to see that even though Las Vegas is more affordable than some places, it too has gone up a lot in price. The first house I bought in Vegas over by the pig farm, I bought that house for $135,000. Now, this was right when everything was pretty much at the lowest. I bought it for $50 a square foot, and I think it was like 5 or 6 years old, right? And I think that house is worth $400 and some thousand now. And it's been what, 11 years, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe 11 or 12 years. That's crazy. And the pig farm's gone, right? They moved the pig farm.
Yeah. They finally sold it.
Oh, they just sold it. They didn't even continue the farm?
No, they sold it, and then they had to wait 5 years for the land. They had to do something with the land for 5 years before they could build on it.
Okay.
So it basically sat there until, whatever they had to do with the ground to
purify
to get it. Yeah, to get it back where you'd want to build a house on it, and then they started building out there.
So have they built over that already? Do you know?
On parts of it, most of it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Slowly doing it, but
Well,
that was a big foot that pig farm took. I didn't realize how big that was.
It's pretty big and stinky. Woo!
But you no longer have that smell up there. I mean, I remember every time you go up there, you'd have to take like a different route so you wouldn't get people to go past the aroma of the pig farm.
Yeah, you didn't want to like be like, whoa, there's also this pig farm that smells like really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because that had to super help the values around there when that was gone. They probably went through the roof. But when my wife and I bought that one, my wife didn't really pick that, or I don't think she knew much about it. I just bought it. And
Well, that's a good deal. You can't even build a house for $50 a square foot.
dude, it was a smoking deal. And but she didn't love it. And it wasn't a great neighborhood either. Some of the people were really nice, some of the neighbors, and some of them were not very great. And
Yeah.
but it's funny because I just bought it and she's like, gosh, it smells so bad. And I'm like, it kind of reminds me of home. I mean, it's not that I love it, but I do love the kind of memories of, I'm like, this isn't a pig farm. Come to Iowa and go buy a pig farm there and you'll smell what real pig farm smells like.
That's true.
But anyway.
The biggest problem right now with Vegas, which has been going on for a long time, is I don't know if we'll ever see entry-level homes or entry-level pricing again.
Uh-huh.
And that's the really unfortunate part, that we have to find, some type of solution for, because if you don't have that entry-level housing for people to buy, then you don't have them moving up and you don't have that cycle going.
Yeah.
And right now, I think that's kind of why the sales volume is a little bit slower right now, because we don't have entry-level housing for people to bump into. So they have to wait in order to be able to afford to buy something. It used to be back in the day where, you could drive further away and buy entry-level housing. A lot of the new home builders were building smaller homes, more affordable. Now it seems like everybody's building, $500,000-$600,000 plus.
Yep.
I know our legislator did some changes to where they can buy federal land for cheaper, as low as $100 an acre, as long as they build entry-level properties are on there. But nothing's really come to fruition for that yet.
Yeah.
And then you have to try to hold back the hedge funds, because the hedge funds are buying all the entry-level housing. And they're really turning the country into permanent renters.
Yes. Because they know that if the economy goes bad, then people can't afford to buy, so they have to rent. Plus, they're actually helping that, happen when there's no inventory and people don't have a choice to buy. Maybe they're priced out or whatever. And then they have then they only rent. Well, when the economy goes bad, rent still goes up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, steadily over the years, it will continue to go up. So you're right. That's why I think it's also more important that people think about this. Like, if you don't buy a house sooner than later, there won't be houses to buy necessarily. The builders are not building enough inventory. I mean, they're 5 years behind. If they were boogieing full-time, full-tilt boogie, they wouldn't catch up in 5 years.
True.
So that's not getting better. That's not going to get better in the next 5, 10, 15 years. It might never get better.
No, I mean, we're not even having land auctions that much in Clark County right now. And so much of our land in Nevada is federally owned. We're like the #1 state for federally owned land.
Yep.
That they don't even release that much. I think it's November 9th or 10th is when they're going to have their next land auction.
Okay.
And I think they're doing 17 parcels. So it's like 895 acres.
Okay.
Majority of it is up by Sky Canyon. Okay. One parcel up by Inspirata. But so builders are going to buy.
One in the north, there are a bunch in the northwest, one in the south west.
Yeah.
Or south.
One in the southwest and then one in Henderson. So, but it really is not enough. And, what are they going to build with those parcels that they buy? I mean, it's an auction. You basically bid what you want, and you can go online and sign up and auction for it right now. And I don't know what the builders are going to do when they get a hold of that land, but we need to have something. We need to get some type of program in place for entry-level housing.
It's funny you were saying that. It's because I remember selling real estate there when I first got started in real estate 11, 12 years ago, whatever it was. And this is what I would say. It's like, it's so easy. Like a kid, working at a restaurant on the strip could afford to go buy a condo, probably.
Yeah.
Easy peasy, like $100,000 condo, $75,000 condo, whatever it is. and then they get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, whatever it is, and they have they might want a bigger condo or a townhouse or something, or not even. Maybe they just live in the condo. Then they have a baby. They have a baby, and so they go ahead and move up to a house, a small entry-level house. Then they start having more babies, and then so they just sell that one and buy another one. It was like you could count on people buying 3-4 houses relatively quickly because it was just like there was the next logical step for them. And they'd be calling you. They'd just be like, "Hey, you know what? We're having another baby, and we don't fit in this place anymore, and we need to whatever." So I think, like you said, the dynamic has changed on that now, based on affordability and what's even available.
Yeah, and not to be political, but I think that's one of the things that this administration really is missing is that the housing sector is such a big integral part of the overall economy.
That's true.
And if you don't have people tapping into that equity that's in their homes by, selling their home, selling and buying something else, or even being able to do some refinances to buy something, put a pool in, buy a car, whatever the case, like we're not feeding the economy. And with the lack of home sales, what's that?
Everything's kind of on pause because they can't pull that liquid out. Because what are they going to do with it? Where are they going to go if they sell it? And like, what are they? Yeah.
And how many trillions of dollars are sitting right now in the economy and equity that is not being infused into the marketplace?
That's a good point.
And we need that to be able to inject into the system and get things building up and some momentum. But they're almost forgetting about the housing sector and how that is such an integral part of the whole economy. Right. I mean, it feeds the construction, it feeds, employment, it feeds the GDP, it feeds so much.
Yeah. It kind of needs to there needs to be, I haven't thought about it, but it makes me think about what incentives could be put out there that would get builders to want to build and homeowners to be able to free up that equity. I mean, if we can figure out those, if they were put those into some kind of a priority position, it could help a lot of the issues that we have overall.
Yeah, I mean, think of it. Back in the day, people would take out a second mortgage or pull out some cash to pay for their kid's wedding or to do some improvements on their house or pay off debt. Well, right now, you don't have people that are able to do that. If they were to pull some money out of their house right now, their payment would double, and it would cripple them
because the interest rates on the HELOC are through the roof too.
Yeah, so it really is stalling out the economy.
Well, speaking of which, let's go ahead and look at some data. We're getting close to the end of the show, so let's take maybe 5-10 minutes and just go over the data in Las Vegas to show what the temperature is right now.
All right. So like the report you're seeing now, I do a weekly report and then I do a monthly report. So the monthly report that you're looking at right now is the median sales price at $450,000. It's been consistently at about that for, I would say, 5-6 months. At the beginning of the year, we started our median sales price was about $425, but it's been holding steady at $450. Condos and townhomes is at $270 right now, but we reached the highest we were at last month. We were at like $285 was the median condo townhome sales price.
Okay.
Now you'll see on the lower part, the sales volume is down. And the reason it's down is because there's no inventory. Right now, I think we have total of like 5,000 properties on the market.
Okay.
That includes condos, townhomes, single family, everything. And I also always say there's probably about 30% of that's on the market that doesn't even apply because it's either new home builders have their homes on the MLS, but those homes aren't readily available. A lot of them have to be built.
Oh, yeah.
So that throws off the numbers. And then you have, probably 15 to 25% of people that have their homes on the market that they're not listed to sell. They're listed to see what they could get. They perceive the value as this, and well, let's just see what we can get. And they just sit there and they kind of throw off the numbers.
They're unrealistic sellers.
Yeah. So you'll have that in every marketplace. So really our inventory is probably sitting at like 4,000, which, we need triple that in order for it to be some type of normal market.
Right.
So that's really what's keeping our median sales price up. But like I said, there's no entry level housing. So there's a lot of buyers that can't buy that would qualify to buy, but you can't find them anything.
Yeah. Find a house in the price range. Yeah. Well, you can find a condo maybe, and even the condos are kind of getting up there, but so it's challenging for sure.
It is.
Interest rates as they are. When the interest rates will shift at some point, they typically do, but we just don't know when. Then maybe things will be different. But when that happens, which we talk about a lot, what's going to happen to the prices?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, but I also wonder how much higher they can go.
Yeah.
I mean, there becomes a point where it's unaffordable in certain marketplaces.
Here's a funny thing. Here's a funny story. That I don't know the history so well in Vegas. I don't know. I looked it up quite as much. I guess it's not as staggering, but in San Diego, so the houses that were built, Del Mar is a very upscale neighborhood and very expensive. I think the average house there is $2+ million now, easy, and that would be for not a very good. That's entry level maybe. And but those houses started off in the 60s when they were built for about $50,000, right? Which was a lot for back then, because in Claremont Mesa, for example, a different, just regular neighborhood, they were going for $15,000. So Del Mar was like $40,000 to $50,000 in the 60s. And then I'm trying to remember, I remember 1995, the average was about $300,000 to $350,000. And at the time when they were $40,000, $50,000, nobody could ever fathom that they'd ever be $350,000. And so that was 95. And then if in 1995 you told them those same houses were going to be worth $2 million in 2023 or whatever, they would have, you're freaking crazy. There's no way nobody could ever afford to buy that. So my point of that story is that even though it seems crazy to us that they could go higher, somehow they keep going higher.
Yeah.
But their income isn't necessarily going higher. I mean, maybe in Del Mar, but not necessarily in the whole United States. So that, I think, is an issue to kind of keep a watch on too.
Yeah, I think a report came out last week that says in order to buy a median price home right now in Vegas, you have to have a family household income of $115,000.
Wow. Yeah. And that doesn't even cut it in San Diego.
What's that?
Yeah. I said that doesn't even cut it in San Diego. You're not buying a house.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be in San Diego, what you need to have to afford there, but
right. That's crazy, man. Do we have another slide there?
So this one is just the weekly report. I put this out weekly, what's going in the MLS, just to show the new activity of how many listings are on the market. And then, I trend it, whether it's going up or down, so that you could see that, price decreases, was at 609. It increased. Solds increased slightly. With the available homes for sale, there's 5,300 that were on the market. And I think like 4,600 of those were $1 million plus.
What? 4,600 were over a million?
No, so 4,600 were 4,600 and under were under $1 million. So the rest were over $1 million. So there was about somewhere around there.
Sure.
I do it more detailed when I post it. I kind of give the percentage that it went up and down for each week, along with this graph. So I put this out every Monday just to kind of show the trend of what's been going on over the week.
And what do you put it on? Where do you post this stuff?
I put it on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Since that seems to be where most people are looking.
Yeah.
Lately.
No, just so people can find you if they want to see and subscribe to your channel, or like your page or follow you on whatever. Did we have another graphic, or is those the two we had?
Those are the two that I provided.
Okay, cool. And then we got your information scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Do you see that?
I see that.
So if anybody would like to consult with Michael Vestuto, all of his information is down there. He's easy to find. He makes awesome videos on Facebook and Instagram. You don't do any TikTok?
I do put them on TikTok as well.
Okay.
I'm just not following. I'm not doing the dancing and pointing things at whatever.
Yeah.
I put the same videos out on TikTok. They just don't get as much traction as they do
Yeah.
on
There's
the
a
other
special
social media platforms.
special format for that one. Like they're all a little different. I don't really understand them either. I'm waiting for somebody that's like young and cool that wants to partner up with me and tell me what to do, and I'll just do it.
It's so time consuming.
I know.
You know, the dynamic of real estate today is so much different than you spend more time like doing videos and looking up data than you do actually out there showing property. I
Yeah.
like being out there with people and actually being able to communicate and relate with people. And
Yeah.
social media has made us so antisocial.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I'm face to face kind of guy. You know that. And
Yeah.
I mean, I like this stuff too. I like all this stuff, but I really perform at my best when I'm face to face with somebody. I mean, everybody does. I think you get, you know, more of a connection, and you can understand what the people are trying to convey, and you read all of them. I mean, even though we can see each other right now, uh,
Mhm.
there's something about, and that's the thing that we talked about at that conference I was at in Las Vegas, was that our worth and our value is going to be largely in what we can do face to face with people, and having a personal connection in person,
Yeah.
and being able to speak to other people in real life, in face to face, or speak to or present to a group or any of that stuff, because people are, as we go, as AI continues to take over and do most of the things,
Hmm.
the important part, our value, is going to be in what we can do as a person that AI can't do. So
Exactly.
that's for forming the relationships and building relationships, and making people feel a certain way, however that is, and helping them in a direct connection.
Well, the objective has always been to get face to face with your client or the consumer,
Yep.
and you want social media has made people so like unrealistic or not
Yeah.
themselves,
Yep.
and I try to be as authentic on social media as I am, and choose to be.
We'll talk soon.
All right, looking forward to it.
All right.
All right, buddy.